to transition to Twins. Where do we stand now as they get set to return for the, in air quotes, second half? In Detroit, where do we stand on roster construction, roster decisions, and where do you think things are trending with a team that definitely has some good players, but definitely needs a lot of pitching
Do they
help?
have the cojones? Is what
Yeah.
Judd is asking.
Well,
Or do they
cojones
just
for
bail?
what,
Yeah.
Phil? I mean, they can attempt to go all in on a Frankie Montas trade or a Luis Castillo trade, but like, are they going to be able to trump the 5, 6, 7 other teams chasing starting pitching, including, the Mets, the Dodgers, the Blue Jays, the Yankees? Like, I'm not quite sure the Twins have the ammo to do so, but certainly they've engaged the A's in trade talks. They've engaged the Reds in trade talks. They've engaged the Cubs on Robertson, right? Like, they know they need, I mean, realistically speaking, to really have a chance, one starter, two relievers. Now, do I think they're about to acquire 3 pitchers? That might be a bit aggressive, but like, I sure hope it's more than one. All right. So, like, people don't want to hear this. I get it. Talk, who cares? Like, let's see action. But, they're pretty active. I mentioned with Judd on Tuesday, Phil, I was at a charity event on Monday that Derek Falvey was listed as supposed to be attending. Well, he didn't end up showing up, so I thought, hey, something must have come up because the draft was over at that point for a few hours, the Monday portion of the draft, rounds 3 through 10. So he was definitely done in the war room, but my understanding is he was going right back to work. So he, missed out on a charity event. So trust me, like, really no all-star break for Derek, and Thad and those guys. I mean, escaping here and there throughout the course of the summer, enjoying a little bit of family time here and there, but not much. They're grinding away. I am curious to see what happens with Miguel Sano. His rehab clock expires here in a handful of days, 20 days total. We're into double-digit days on the rehab assignment. What happens there? I'm just telling you guys, like, if they could trade him, I think they'd trade him. Because, like, I don't know if you can make a logical case that you would rather have Sano on the roster than Celestino. Like, to me, that would be the move. You would send Celestino down. I don't think they're ready to expose Nick Gordon to waivers. It does turn out, so something I said last week, and I checked on this, Kyle Garlick still has an option. But, like, you want Garlick in there against lefties more than Miguel Sano. Like, this isn't Miguel Sano of 5 years ago mashing lefties. Miguel Sano the last couple of years hasn't mashed lefties. So, like, I don't know how Sano fits on the roster. So if they could trade him, even if they have to eat a little bit of money, is there a team out there? So that certainly is something I'll be keeping an eye on. Then, like, just what trades do they make? Some injuries, Kenta Maeda. I will tell you this on Maeda. So I mentioned a couple weeks ago, or maybe last week, whenever it was, that him and his agency, a big agency, Wasserman, split. Digging a little bit more, I sense somewhat, maybe this is somewhat fitting into the reckless speculation narrative here on Thursday, but I'll throw it out there that Maeda does want to come back this year. The former agency said, yeah, why don't we wait until 2023? No reason to really extend it. Now, he hit 80-something in a bullpen the other day, just throwing fastballs at this point. But could he help at some point mid-September? Like, I think even early September is really aggressive. But could he potentially help? I still think it's a long shot. I really do. But I guess you can't necessarily rule that out.
Yeah.
Randy Dobnak gave me an update on his situation the other day. Like, is he still
forgot
down?
about him.
Yeah, that could help. Let me read what he told me.
If they try to play this off as if, listen, I know we didn't make a splash at the deadline, but we're getting Alcala and Dobnak back. So and Sano.
Yeah, no, rightfully so. We would destroy them, right? We would rip them to shreds. No, they cannot. They cannot do that. They need to bring in outsiders. They cannot bring back
It's kind of what
Dobnak,
they do. Like,
maybe Kenta Maeda, maybe Matt Canarino. No. They cannot do that, Phil. They know that. Trust me. I promise. On Dobnak, here is what he told me. Going well, through 20 fastballs off the mound 2 days ago. He feels good. He's at about 80%. He has a fastball / changeup bullpen for tomorrow. So he's not necessarily close to returning to game action, but that is the update on Dobnak. On Canarino, he continues to rehab in Fort Myers. He is progressing very well. He sees himself back in Wichita, Double-A, in early August, about 2 weeks away He's got some funky stuff, 24 and a half years old. Now, that would be a big ask to bring Canarino up to help this bullpen.
Yes.
But he's a Twins prospect that I know a lot of fans pay attention to. So just know that he's doing really well right now, coming back from that elbow issue.
Here's one of their biggest issues is they just, we're 6 years into this front office, and the whole thing about Falvey was, hey, he's one of the core pieces of this, brain trust in Cleveland that's going to bring over this pitching development acumen, and we haven't seen a lot of that. And so whether it's pitching development,
some of it though, right? I mean,
a little,
seen some.
It's not zero, but
it's not zero. I think it's better than when he got here.
But here's the point that I was going to make. Whether it's lack of look at their farm system right now. It is not regarded as a top 5 or 10 farm system. And one of the big problems for them is it's not like they've spent 6 years gutting their farm system, trading young players away for win now pieces. So they've been building a farm system for 6+ years, and it's still not top half of the league. And you look right now, go look at the MLB pipeline rankings from preseason. And Austin Martin is in the top 3. Jordan Balazovic, it has a 12 ERA in the minor leagues this year. So some of the guys that were supposed to be near the top of your sort of underwhelming prospect list are terrible this year. So you already have fewer pieces to trade, period. And then the pieces that you would ordinarily potentially trade for Luis Castillo are performing terribly in their age 22, 23 seasons in the minors, Doogie.
Correct. Now, it's not across the board. Guys like Spencer Steer, Matt Wallner.
Yep, those guys are coming up.
But you're right. They are not a top 10 farm system. I'm not quite sure they are a top 15 farm system. Now, I get it. Those lists are subjective, but they're not bottom 5, but they're probably somewhere, lower half. I mean, maybe closer to 16, 17, not 25, but it's not an excellent farm system. That goes back to how exactly do you trump other teams' offers for some of these elite pitchers? I just don't know how you do it.
You got to include major league players. I mean, it would have to be, and this is going to sound crazy to people, but all right, Alex Kirilloff.
Well, I'm not trading Kirilloff, and I don't think they will either.
What could he get
Miranda,
you?
Sure. Yeah, Miranda, okay. I don't know about Kirilloff. Maybe Larnach, too. I can be talked into Larnach. I can be talked into Miranda. I can't be talked into Kirilloff. I would be surprised if they trade Kirilloff before August 2nd. The biggest issue to me with this regime is, these bullpen arms they've signed going back years. Joe Smith, Blake Parker, Colomé. They have swung and missed on so many relievers. And I get it. Relievers are incredibly cyclical. Good one year, not so good the next year. But the track record on signing free agent relievers is horrendously bad.
Their overall development of arms, period, for an administration that was supposed to be having expertise in that area is probably the most surprising thing and disappointing thing.
Well, I mean, if you look at, now, Phil, you're going to debate me on this just being a mundane stat, who cares? But ERA, if you look at starters collective ERA, going back a handful of years, I mean, pretty good, especially from where it was. So I do think there are some positives we can point to. But sure, Derek Falvey was brought in as this pitching savant.
Right.
So that's fine that if you thought in 2016 that if we fast forward 6 years, 2022, if you expected more by this point, I'm not necessarily going to debate you on that. I'm just, I'm not, but I want to point out that to me there are some things we can look at and say, okay, that was a positive. That is a positive.
My biggest question for them here in the next week or so, I guess next 2 weeks, I love the Correa move. All right. I know that it was sort of gifted to them, and it might just be a 1-year thing because he can opt out and probably will. $35 million for 1 year. And my question to them is, okay, why did you do this? So you did it presumably for one of 3 reasons, or maybe all 3 reasons. Number one would be your team can be better in 2022. And it is, but it's only performing at an 86-win pace right now with, 2.5 months to go in the season. And the White Sox are probably waking up. So, your team is good, but it's not ironclad playoff, and you're not the Yankees or the Astros. So
you're not, but I don't trust the White Sox, Phil. I just don't.
We'll see what they do in the second half. But, your team is good, but you didn't, solidify your playoff status with this move necessarily. Okay. The second reason would be to spike attendance, right? You get one of the better players in baseball to come in. It's a big splash move. Well, This is the lowest average attendance outside of the COVID years in the history of Target Field. So it's not like people are now Declan bought season tickets, but it's not like people are flocking in droves of 38,000 to Target Field. And so the third reason I don't think they would ever mention publicly, but it has to be a conversation in the next 2 weeks, which is if we aren't winning enough and if attendance isn't spiked enough, does it make sense to use this asset that could walk away for basically nothing, maybe a compensation pick? If there's 2 or 3 teams that would love a bat and a sure-handed glove up the middle, could you get 3 really solid prospects or something for him in the next couple weeks? I'm not advocating for that. I think you should trade for 3 pitchers, like you said earlier in the show here, Doogie. But if you don't have the stomach or the resources to trade for 3 pitchers, I think it's really risky to ride this thing out as constructed and risk Carlos Correa walking away in 3 months from now to become a free agent. So what do you think of that whole conundrum I just laid out?
Well, I think it's a fair conversation to have, but I'm just telling you, Phil, I will bet you anything that Carlos Correa is here on August 3rd. Like, I don't see a trade coming, but I understand where you are coming from, but they're going to play this thing out. They just are, and, I don't know how to quantify it, but multiple people over there will tell you the influence he's had in the clubhouse on guys in the cage, his leadership. Like, they want that for a full year. The expectation always has been that he's going to opt out. Like, why would he bypass unrestricted free agency at 28 years old?
Correct.
Last offseason, weird offseason. We've returned pretty much to normalcy. Like, why would he pass up a chance? Like, this is the time to get the 7 or 8 year contract. So, yeah, I've always expected him to opt out. The question is, do the Twins want to, for the first time ever, present somebody with a $200 million contract? Like, until I see it, I won't necessarily believe it, but it would be nice if Carlos Correa was here for a really long time. But I'm just telling you, I don't see a trade happening. He does have, a 5-team no trade. So is it very possible the Astros, for example, are on that list? Could the Astros use maybe an upgrade at shortstop? Is the young kid Pena, is he even healthy right now? I'm apologizing. I don't have intimate knowledge of the Astros roster right this second. I'm just trying to come up with he's a great player, right? Somebody probably would take him, but of all the contenders, who's desperately seeking a shortstop?
So there's an intriguing factor.
Is there, Phil? You tell me. You follow it closer than I do.
Seattle would be the only team I think that could make a pull for him.
And they paid Crawford, right? Yeah, they gave him good money, and he's a really good fielder. But sure, I mean, would Correa be an upgrade on Crawford? Yes, of course, Declan. Agree with you on that. Heck, he'd be an upgrade in Baltimore, right? I mean, who's Baltimore's shortstop? Right? I mean, we can come up with teams where you're like, okay, they should acquire Carlos Correa. But
Seattle's got the ammo. They could trade Kelnick.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think there's a different move there for Seattle. I don't think it's them trying to chase down a shortstop. Maybe I'll be wrong on that one, but I think, after they paid Crawford, that they believe enough in him, especially with the glove, that he'll be their shortstop.
So the intriguing thing about this entire conversation goes back to something Phil brought up, I think it was a few weeks back, which is Carlos Correa is one of the players, not surprisingly, encouraging the Twins to make aggressive moves because he's like, I'm here for a year. Let's make the most of this. If they don't do something substantial in today's sports world, tons of guys are friends and talk constantly, okay? So, and Correa clearly is a leader in baseball. He might have cheated, but he's clearly really well liked and respected. And I think it'll be interesting if the Twins do not make a bold move, because I think Correa will publicly or privately, but to his friends in baseball, say, I'm not quite sure why they signed me, because I went there and we were all geared up to do something special. We're in first place, and they went out and got Sam Dyson of 2022. So I do think it's an interesting time period for the Twins, where Correa's words and thoughts on this are going to have an impact long term. If they do just say, you know what the hell, we're not going to trade Correa, but we will play this entire thing out. So I think that's like an underlying storyline here of the Twins having an opportunity and seeing if they do something aggressive to try and capitalize on Correa's on the fact that he's here for a season.
Well, how do you define aggressive? They're going to do something.
It can't be Sam Dyson.
There's way too much dialogue for us to be having a conversation on August 3rd that they didn't do anything, that they'll just run this thing
playoff
back.
rotation starter and 2 relievers that slot in as your second and third best relievers behind Durant.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
That's what they need
may
to
be
do.
a little aggressive, but
That's aggressive.
Starter and reliever. Like, that would not shock me. 2, maybe not all 3, but 2. Like, they're going to do something.
Right, but it can't be. But Doogie, it can't
will
be a
we
slappy.
call it aggressive? That to me is.
It can't
No
be
more slappies.
It can't be Sergio Romo, and that worked fairly well. But like that was just a let's do something type of a move. It has to be something much more than they did in 2019 for me to be satisfied at the deadline.
But how do you beat Phil? How do you beat what the Cardinals can offer, what the Blue Jays can offer?
Okay, then you're fired.
What
like
the
you've had
Mets can
6
offer?
years. This is where I'm at with this, and I'm not ripping you here, but this is what happens with like Twins coverage and stuff. It's like, well, how are they supposed to do? You guys have had 6 years to build a farm system as trade chips to put yourself in a position to do something at a deadline, and they decided not to in 2019. Now it's like, okay, well, here's another chance for you. And so if you're right, and the answer is they can't compete with St. Louis, then I say, then what are we doing? Then why are you employed? Then what have you been building for the last 6 years?
Well,
if you
it goes
don't,
back
after
to-
6 years, you don't have enough trade chips
it goes
anymore.
back to the 26-man roster, right? That you need to move off of somebody on this roster. I'm just telling you, I don't foresee Kirilloff being that guy. I certainly would not move off of Kirilloff, but Miranda, Larnach, I don't think Celestino's got a whole lot of trade value, but like we need to look at those types of guys, right? Maybe
Yeah.
Miranda, more than anybody else that you have
Arise.
to be. And I do think they would be. I think Arise is here.
But here's the thing about Arise, all right? People are going to kill me for this. I know that he's about to win the American League batting championship. He's not a very good defensive player. He's kind of positionless. He's not like a plus defender at any position. And if that batting average dips a little bit because maybe some of his batted ball luck comes down, and he's no longer a 340 hitter, but he's like a good solid 305 hitter, but with not much power, not the most amazing base runner. I mean, this is the peak of Luis Ariz. Do you think he's just a 340 hitter every year going forward, or is this the peak of his career and he's got 2 or 3 years left? I'm just saying he's not untouchable to me if you can
He shouldn't be untouchable. Agree on that.
if you can get a lights out starting pitcher and a great reliever or something, it's like he should be on the table.
All right, well, would you do, if the Reds say, we want to rise, plus we need a little bit more, we will give you Luis Castillo. Is that a deal you're making?
I guess I'd need to know, do they also have a really good reliever they can kick in here too? Because they would be getting like 3 years of Luis Ariz is a really good player, so I don't want to minimize it, but you'd be giving them more value for 3 years than they'd be giving you, so they'd have to kick something else in, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, well, and that's where, that's where they're kicking around all these ideas. You're right. If you're giving up a rise, not only are you getting back a starting pitcher in the deal, you're getting back, that team's really good reliever. So yeah, I think there's something to that. I don't think he's untouchable. I'll leave it at that. Like we know Buxton isn't going anywhere. I'm telling you, I don't see Correa going anywhere. I can't quite say that about Luis Ariz right this second. And I'm with you. Like, do I think he's a 340 hitter for the next 2 or 3 years? Probably not. I still think there's definitely a 305 to 315 type hitter there, though, every single year. So there's enough value there with him under team control, as you said it, Phil, for at least 3 more years? Or is it 4? Is it 4 or 3? But we're talking more than 2. It's definitely 3 minimum. So,
and of course, I know what happens. Like when I say stuff like this or Correa, people are like, Mackey wants the Twins to trade Ariz. I'm not saying that. I'm saying get creative and make this team better. Like the net should be that you make this team better. And there's only like 2 or 3 guys that are untouchable to me. So that's all I'm saying.
Well, would you think about moving somebody like Jorge Polanco?
Yes.
Right? Max Kepler. Kepler absolutely should be on the table.
Mm-hmm.
Even with, the regular numbers being down last year, the underlying numbers suggested there was a little bit more there last year. Max Kepler's long had fans around the game. Like, you need to be thinking about something like that. It's
Kepler gonna
unfortunate
get
that
you,
Larnach
though?
is hurt right now.
What-
That Larnach
Doogie.
is still a few weeks away.
What's Kepler going to get you, though? See, that's my question. Is like, because that one to me is a slam dunk. If you come to me with an offer that's halfway decent, I'm trading Max, but I don't know that he's going to get you exactly what you want. Here's the other thing that I don't understand, and it's Falvey and Levine have done this, so the precedent exists. It's just timing. They have traded top prospects in the offseason. Chase Petty, Brusdar Gratterall. They have made trades that scream we are willing to go into the very top of our prospect pool and make deals. Why that does not and has not ever translated, I don't believe, with this crew to the trade deadline is what I'm confused by. If they were always afraid to trade top prospects, I'd say I don't like that, but you clearly are just afraid. They're
Well, and
not.
that's where I think this year might be different, right?
All right.
When you
That's
add
what I wanna
Carlos
see.
Correa, things change. And yeah, like that's one of the reasons I'm so fascinated to see what they do, because I'm telling you, I expect them to do something. Like they're going to do something. So yes, how much are they willing to go in? But like, who are those top prospects? I go back to that point, Judd. Who are those top prospects? It's not Austin Martin. I'm sorry. It's just not.
Mm-hmm.
So who is it?
Who's
Simeon Woods Richardson even back? I should know this, but is he back?
Yeah, no, they don't. That's the thing.
He was
don't.
battling COVID, but there's a lot to like about Simeon Woods Richardson. But like, you would move him. They'd move any of those prospects.
That's the problem. Like,
But,
they're
like, who
none
are
of their
these great
prospects
guys?
are good enough to where you'd be like, ooh, it would hurt to lose that one, And they've had 6 years to build it.
But that's where moving one of those outfielders, Kepler, Larnick, or even Wallner, if some team wants Wallner, but you have Wallner in the minors. Matt Wallner is 24 years old. Matt Wallner could help the Twins right now. I get it. He's at AAA, played one game at AAA after spending the entire season in AA. But Matt Wallner, I'm just telling you, is fully capable of playing in the major leagues today. So they have a little bit of outfield depth. So go ahead and trade from that. So that'll be also something I'll keep an eye on, because I just know, like, I know Miami has liked Max Kepler for a while. Tampa has liked Max Kepler. Not that I necessarily see a match with Tampa, but like, you should be willing to move any of those outfielders not named Byron Buxton.
Yeah. Well, Doogie, we've kept you way longer than usual, and it was.
And I look at Kirilloff
totally
more
worth
as a
it.
first baseman, by the way, not necessarily a left fielder. So I'm still telling you, Kirilloff would surprise me. I just know how big of fans he has in that front office. I'm not saying he's untouchable, but I would be very, very surprised if they moved Kirilloff. But I'm talking more as Kirilloff being a first baseman. I just think that's his long-term position, not left field.
Yeah. Amazing. Doogie. Great stuff, man. Happy Reckless Speculation Thursday.
You got it, boys. Take it easy.
See you,
All
dudes.
right, there he is, Darren Doogie Wolfson from the 5 Eyewitness News Sports Department, and boy, I need a smoke
cigarette.
after that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never had a cigarette in my life, and I would light one up right now after
You never have?
that batch. No,
Never
no,
dabbled in one?
my dad's had lung cancer 3 times, and just it's always been kind of a. But
If I'm
after that,
drinking-
dude, I'm man.
If I'm drinking and a friend offers me one, it's a 95% chance I'm taking one.
Very
Yeah.
common. Very common.
Let's keep rolling on this Twins thing here for a second, and we can get to some old tweets exposed. I know you threw that graphic up there, Dex, but I think for on-air production purposes here, I think we can just put all of that Twins discussion into one, and then we can just leave all of this on here too. But I have a question for you guys about this. Is not going to happen. But I just want to know if you guys would consider doing, because we've talked about, like, would you ever who would you trade? Like, is Arise untouchable? He's 25 years old. He's going to be a batting champion. He's probably going to be like a 4 wins above replacement player. He's a really good player. Doesn't really have a position. He's playing first base, kind of, but he's not a long-term first baseman. Is he your second baseman? Is he just a super utility guy that hits 330 every year? It's kind of a, you don't really know what he is in a year or two from now, but he's having this amazing season. So the Athletics' Ken Rosenthal reported on Saturday that the Nationals will entertain trade offers for Juan Soto after he rejected a 15-year, $440 million contract extension, which people think is absurd. How do you turn down almost $500 million? Well, the average annual value on that contract, he'd be the 15th highest paid player in baseball based on AAV.
Yeah.
So this is the Nationals trying to get a discount, which sounds crazy because they're offering $500 million.
Right.
But they're trying to get a discount on a 23-year-old generationally great player here. So I don't blame them for turning down this contract. Per John Heyman of the New York Post, the Nationals are intent on finding a team that will pay an enormous price for Soto. The price, according to Heyman, is 4 or more worthwhile pieces. Either your 4 top prospects and or like major league ready pieces. So 4 big premium pieces. I repeat, this will never happen, but in the spirit of reckless speculation, okay? And by the way, the Twins aren't listed among the top 15 teams on some of these, like covers.com has odds on Juan Soto's next team. The Twins are not listed in any of these. So this is not going to happen. But would you ever consider trading 4 top assets for Juan Soto and then signing him for like, I don't know, let's call it 7 years, and then he can become a free agent when he's 30 again, and some ungodly amount of money, like $30 to $40 million a year.
Sure.
And I'll give you 2 pools to choose from here. So let's say they want 2 current major leaguers and 2 top prospects. So you would pick 2 of these major, or if you have other names you'd throw in here, like the candidates that are on the major league roster right now are Alex Kirilloff, Luis Arraez. I would put Jose Miranda on here, and I think Yon Duran would be someone that they would ask for too. Maybe there's another 1 or 2 that you can think of. Max Kepler. I don't think they give a rip about Max Kepler.
Yeah, Max
Sorry, no one
Kepler.
wants Max Kepler.
I think we talk about Max, but I don't think Max gets you a lot back.
No.
I'm sorry.
And then a couple of your top prospects. So the guys that are the hottest this year and climbing up the board are Matt Wallner and Spencer Steer, both in their early 20s. Simeon Woods Richardson and Austin Martin are the 2 players you got for Barrios last year. Austin Martin is atrocious this year, but still a highly touted prospect. Would you ever consider trading like 2 of those prospects and Kirilloff plus Miranda or Arraez plus Miranda to land a 23-year-old generational superstar and then pay him a crap load of money?
Here's what I would do. I'd pick up the little bat phone here, and I'd. Who's the Nationals GM? Do we know him off the top of the head?
Mike Rizzo.
Some guy.
Is he still
Oh, is
the
it Mike
GM?
Rizzo?
Mike Rizzo?
Okay.
Bit of a
Mike Rizzo.
meathead at times.
Bit of
He
a.
does
I love the term
World Series.
meathead.
Bit of a meathead.
Here's what I would trade. I would entertain at least. I would give up Alex Kirilloff. This one doesn't move the needle a ton, but he was very good last year, and when he's healthy, he's really good as Jorge Polanco. I start with Kirilloff and Polanco on my big league roster. And then I give up Royce Lewis, and I give up Brooks Lee, their 8th overall pick they just made a week ago.
Okay, so
That
say it
would-
again. So you're giving up Royce, Brooks Lee,
Jorge
Kirilloff.
Polanco, and Alex Kirilloff.
Polanco doesn't bug me as much because
Yeah, he's a second.
his
But
contract
he's-
runs
but he's
out here
good.
soon.
I don't
Yeah,
know. They're.
and he's
I think
cheap.
they will. I don't know they would want Polanco. I think they would want a younger, more standout player. I think
They would ask for a rise, probably, right?
Arraez, Miranda, maybe both. Like Polanco, God bless him, he plays a lot, but I think if you were to conduct physicals on Twins players, and you were the Nats, I think your doctors would be like, Jorge Polanco's leg and ankle is jacked. Like he's been bugged by that for like 2 years, you guys.
Yeah.
So I think they'd be like, well, you can throw him in, but that ain't a long-term thing. So
he's more than a throw-in, though. He's a really good player.
Right,
He's like
but
a
I'm saying-
4-win player.
right, but I'm saying don't forget the one thing that the Twins consistently ignore is what the doctors say. Chris Paddock, the Mets turned it down. Oh, we'll take him. How about Sam Dyson? We'll take him. Like we need to keep in mind that doctors exist for sports teams for a reason, and I feel like the Twins don't necessarily take the consultations as seriously as they should.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, he plays. I mean, he did hit the
I know
IL
he does
for a
play.
minute.
God bless him, but I'm just telling you, I think the exam wouldn't come back very positive on him.
Okay, but the question is, would you do this? Would you trade 2 current major leaguers and 2 top prospects? Not
Yes.
with the Nationals doctors not include. Okay, let's say they don't want Polanco. Cool,
Yeah.
Arraez. You know.
Yeah, or let's say they want Arraez and Miranda, so now we're up to like 5 pieces. Yes, I would definitely do it. But this gets back to a far more intriguing thing, which Doogie continues to say, which is really very, very damning. And that's this. And Phil, I think you broached this too. The farm system's in bad shape.
Yeah.
And how is that the case? So, like, let's say I wanted him. Let's say that I talked to Scott Burrows and I'm like, I want to keep Correa and I'm going to go to the wall to make this team as great as possible. And so now it's the Nationals are getting calls from, let's say, the Yankees, the Dodgers, the Twins, take 5 or 6 teams. And Doogie continues to harp on this, and he's right. Everybody else comes in, for the most part, and trumps the Twins. And it's like, oh, no, we'll
Yeah.
give you this and this and this. And you're like, oh, okay, that's better.
Yep. And
So,
then the
like-
response from a lot of people, I feel like, is, well, what do you want the Twins just don't have the prospects to trade? What do you want them to do? Well, I want them over the course of a 6-year run
Yes.
when they're not They're not gutting, like some of these other teams are gutting their farm systems every other year to trade for stud players at the deadline in the offseason and still have better farm systems.
Right.
So your bread and butter as an organization, if you're not going to ever compete for top free agents, and you're not going to, you're just going to be a little bit more close to the vest with the money that you spend, then you have to have more currency when it comes to prospects than they do right now. Now, there's some injuries in here that are not their fault, and I get that. But there's also some guys that just aren't performing. Balazovic, and there was an injury thing with there before, but, he's made 14 starts or whatever. He made a start a few nights ago. It went like an inning. Austin Martin, they made a trade for him, and he's been terrible.
Well, and Doogie, I think, Declan, if I'm not mistaken, Doogie talked about this about a month ago on a Tuesday episode. So, Phil, you weren't on it, but he was talking about Martin, and he had talked to a source who said, oh, yeah, you know why he's struggling? Because they're changing his swing. They're trying to get more power. And basically said, if Austin Martin went back to his swing, so what was his swing before this season, he'd probably be fine. But they are trying to get more power, and therefore, without trying to be too flippant about this, they are submarining his opportunity at the plate because they think if they can get this adjustment made, it's going to provide more power because he long-term is not a shortstop.
And I think what I would say to that is maybe they're right. And maybe that because Austin Martin has 6 career minor league home runs, which is a disaster. Like, you can't, I'm sorry. I don't care how many walks you draw. And he does draw a lot of walks. That ain't going to fly in the major leagues. You're not going to, unless you're Luis Ariz and you're going to be hitting over 300 on a regular basis, which he doesn't. His minor league batting average is 261. Gets on base at a 40% clip, but that doesn't translate to the major leagues. So they probably brought him in and said, okay, we're going to make a couple adjustments. It might hurt you in the short term, but starting in late 2022-23, you're going to be ready to rock and roll. But the problem is he's 23 and a half years old, and maybe his value was better as a trade piece anyways, and now he's kind of damaged from that perspective. So maybe they'll be right in the long term.
And I've heard similar things from him on a source that said that he's kind of a bit of a head case. So like he's taken a lot of this information and he hasn't really translated it well, which I sympathize for him to a degree. It's like, hey, if I'm doing this and it's successful in the minor leagues, like why do I want to change it? And then also he does not project as a legitimate long-term shortstop. His defense is not as good as it's advertised. And to be honest, like I wouldn't want to do this, but maybe you sell now. Maybe because if his value is going to continue to go tank, if it's going to just be the same player he was a year from now, well, now he's worth nothing. He's not worth as much as he was a year ago when you gave up Jose Barrios for him. But I wouldn't rule out trading him now and just letting someone else try to figure him out.
Yeah, it's I'd love to know what other teams think of his upside. If other teams would say, "Oh, yeah, we would trade for him. We would buy low on him," but you'd be selling low either way. And to your point, well, maybe you're selling lower in a year.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We just covered a lot there with Doogie and then with this and I guess my answer to the Soto question is, and I get it, it's not going to happen, but I wish the Twins were in a better spot to make it a conversation.
Yes.
Like not that you would ever actually give up 4 pieces and gut your system like that for a guy that you probably couldn't re-sign anyways because he's gonna hit free agency anyways. But the fact that you can't even come up with a list of prospects that make sense to offer is a problem after 6 years. So it's something they're dealing with as they try to get pitching right now too. Like who do teams want?
Well, and this is probably an entirely different discussion in some ways, but it fits the reckless speculation lifestyle perfectly. And it's this. And I know the poll ads are like, they trust their guys and they love them, blah, blah, blah. But at what point in time do you start to ask questions? Like at what point in time do you...
2 years ago.
Well, no, I know you do and I do, and I think Declan does, but I'm saying as an organization that that was basically in baseball hell when they finally made a substantial move in 2016 as things fell apart with Terry and Paul. At what point in time, like, do you say, how do we have no prospect? Like, what's going on here? Because, every organization has failures of prospects and injuries. Like, that's not like just a Twins thing. But it is interesting that now that you are positioned, and it's a really it's a fun conversation because in some ways the whole lucking into Correa thing, Phil, has forced their hand completely. Like if Scott Boras doesn't put Correa here, I think we're sort of frustrated, but like there's an urgency now. And in some ways, if I'm ownership, I'm probably asking more questions about why we can't make substantial moves involving prospects to capitalize on the fact that, again, from a business standpoint, people like Declan Goff bought season tickets because Correa signed. If Correa does not sign, correct me if I'm wrong, Dex, I don't think that you buy tickets.
Yeah.
Probably not.
So it's an interesting thing.
Well, and then I think too, I know for a fact there's a lot of Twins fans who, listen or watch the show and they sit here and like, why, you guys, they're in first place. They're, they may have hit a snag there toward the end against the White Sox, but they're in first place. They could still make a move or something at the deadline. Why all the angst? Give it a chance to play out. And I think a lot of this is just 20 years of scar tissue that I have seen this play time and time again, where they got a pretty decent team or maybe a team that's ready to pop if they just could add some help to it. And by the way, if the division didn't have just 4 teams in the dumpster, this would be a completely different conversation here too, because they wouldn't be in first place.
Right.
They would be 8 games out of first place and hunting for a wild card spot. And so we always come to the same crossroads with the Twins, which is pretty good. Okay, this team could potentially make the playoffs, but they need a piece or two. And every time they need a piece or two, they hedge. They don't actually go and make the move because they don't want to gut from the 2024-25 team that could also be pretty darn good if you just kind of keep the line marching forward. So anyhow, this Twins discussion is powered in part by our friends at Equity Partners and the seaplanes that are flying right past my left ear right now.
Love it.
So we actually had our guy Ryan, who is one of the founders of Equity Partners, making his predictions on Purple Daily. Write that down yesterday. So some good stuff from him. But Equity Partners is here to make the selling process of your house 100% hassle-free. And with their We Have program, they'll partner with you to fix up your home before you put it on the market. From simple fixes to total remodels, they will help you get the absolute most value out of your home. And the biggest benefit here is you can move before you sell. So you don't have to time everything up. It's all kind of a pain in the butt process. You can put offers in on your next home non-contingent on the sale of yours, which is huge. Learn more at equitypartnersmn.com. equitypartnersmn.com. Also, before we get to old tweets exposed here, our friends at Dennis Kirk are helping with riding season. So whether you like to get out on a Harley, a Metric Cruiser, sport bike, whatever it is, they've got 160,000 parts and accessories in stock, free shipping on orders over $89, and same-day shipping on orders placed before 8 p.m. Ride more, wait less at DennisKirk.com. All right, time for some old tweets exposed here on Mackie and Judd. What do you got for us? What incriminating things do you have for us here, Declan?
Let's start with this. We were talking about Falvey and Levine going in and hedging at the trade deadline. Let's go to old Dex tweets. I'll self-report here to start. Just a gut reaction here. July 31st, 2019. Making sense of the Sam Dyson acquisition. NL league average for relievers. I point out 4.5 ERA, 24K percentage. Walk percentage just under 10. And Sam Dyson, look how good Sam Dyson is, everyone. He's going to be great. He's going to be a great addition to the Twins. I think Sam Dyson made one appearance, got shelled, and then turned out like he hated his girlfriend's cat and was just a disaster. So I'm making light of Sam Dyson being a good acquisition, and he did absolutely nothing with the Twins.
He has not pitched in the major leagues since that trade, or since the Twins dumped him. I don't know. Has he been just injured? He's not that old. He literally hasn't pitched since July or August of 2008.
Out of baseball with his abuse of poor Knuckles the cat, if not his girlfriend too. And I don't know.
Knuckles
Snuckles.
is a great name
It's
for a cat.
Snuckles.
Knuckles, whatever.
Put
you
some
know
respect
what I mean.
on that feline.
Hey, listen, I'm a
Okay.
dog person now. Okay, I grew up with cats, but now I'm a dog person.
All right, Judge, this is just hilarious. It's not necessarily like incriminating wrong. I just want to know more details on it. You said at the end of 2019, if I ever open a baseball frat house, I'm going to invite Dobnak and Smeltzer to join, and I think we'd all get along.
I don't know why I included Smeltzer. Dominic makes perfect sense.
Dobnak makes perfect sense. He
They
looks like
both
he
look
could
like guys who could
pound
drink
some
a
beers.
beer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I mean, Dominic would be great fun. And you know what? The Dobber and I, we get along great.
Yeah.
We get along absolutely great. We could talk about our exploits in sports and how we both weren't that good. He's a little bit improved on me, but no, I don't remember why Smeltzer got in there though. That's a very good question.
I've heard the Dauber does enjoy himself an IPA or two.
He seems like a fun dude.
He does.
Like he does seem like a genuinely good and fun dude.
Can you imagine? They gave him a contract. They gave that guy a
3 years, right?
It's one of the funniest contracts.
Dude, I
ever.
think it was longer than that, wasn't it?
It might have been 3 with an option, 4 years. It was a nice.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think it was like
considered
5.
a steal, right?
Let's
Considered
Five
a
for
steal
like
at the time.
Yeah, it was.
What a deal for the Twins.
It was
But there was no
strange.
reason to do it, right? Didn't they have him under
Well-
team control for like 4 more years?
Phil Hughes got a contract with no reason to do it too.
So he signed a 5 years. It was oh my god, it's a 5-year ironclad
There you
deal,
go.
and it's only for like $9 million, so it wasn't that much.
Oh,
but
only.
and then team options through 2028, and yeah,
him.
he hasn't pitched yet this year. He did make 14 appearances last year with a 7.64 earned run average. Yuck. So, anyways, okay.
All right. One more for Phil. I think we talked about this on Monday or Tuesday when you were being a beat writer for the Twins and you were just pumping up the Nick Blackburn type of.
Oh yeah, this is
bounce back
I've
move.
self-reported this on numerous occasions. Yeah.
A possible sign that Nick Blackburn's stuff was indeed better last night. He recorded a personal high season high 24 looking strikes. There is
Just
a lot
baffling
of,
hitters.
Yeah, there's a lot of Nick Blackburn possible old tweets exposed to in about the March-April of 2012 range when Phil was at spring training.
Yeah, this was
Happens
is
to us
this
all.
the 10-year anniversary today of this tweet?
Oh my God, it is.
Does that say July 21st? Let's all
is.
celebrate. I think I
All
win.
right.
So let's celebrate
Yeah.
the 10-year anniversary
birthday.
of this Nick Blackburn propaganda.
Happy anniversary to that tweet.
Amazing. All right, that's Reckless Speculation Thursday here on Mackie and Judd. And over on Purple Daily, we will do a deep dive into what's the deal with Kellen Mond going into his second training camp. Has anyone seen him? Talked to him? What's going on with the Vikings' 3rd-round pick? So thanks for hanging out with us here. Daily Minnesota sports, entertainment, speculation, therapy, whatever you need from us.